Blisk. No, not that guy. Blisk is one of the many references that link Apex Legends to Titanfall. He was a member of the IMC, the bad guys, and the leader of the elite group known as the Apex Predators. Although Blisk isn't directly in the game at this moment, he has been spotted in several Apex cinematics, including The Endorsement, North Star, and you could even hear his voice right before Ash was turned into a simulacrum.
Ashes to ash, ash to ashes.
It is clear that Blisk has a large role in the Apex universe, but what about his group, the Apex Predators? It is widely speculated that Blisk is actually the founder of the Apex games, as the name of his squad back in Titanfall was, as I mentioned, the Apex Predators, which coincidentally is the name of the highest rank in the game and the rank of the full teams that keep killing me in pubs. Couple that with the early leaks of him in the game files, it's safe to say that Kuben Blisk has a pretty significant connection to Apex Legends. There are even more hints to this in the lore and the cinematics, as we mentioned earlier, where Blisk is actually seen giving the Apex Predator invitation card to several legends, including Valkyrie, who is the daughter of Viper, one of the members of the original Apex Predator clan. But anyways, enough of the lore. The next reference is actually in the game. Before being nerfed into the ground, Bloodhound was one of the highest pick legends in the game, but did you know that this once useful legend originally was set to make an appearance in Titanfall? Yep, that's right. In a Titanfall 2 art book, the original Bloodhound design could be seen in a modeling section of the book. For whatever reason, they never really made it into Titanfall, but since their design was basically all done, Respawn saw no problem with plopping them right into the Apex universe, and despite not being added into Titanfall 2 directly, the ability Active Radar Pulse is more or less the same as Bloodhound's scan ability that we do see in Apex. And of course, in Apex, Bloodhound also serves as a counter to Bangalore, who is another legend that crossed over from the Titanfall series. While she wasn't an actual character in the previous games, during the events of Titanfall she was part of the IMC and fought in the war. As the war neared its end, specifically during the Battle of Gridiron, Bangalore suffered wounds inflicted by a militia pilot. Bangalore and her surviving brother Jackson ended up escaping to the Outlands. Because of that, they were targeted by an IMC pilot for abandoning the battle. But through their joint efforts and the power of family, they successfully managed to eliminate this pilot. And eventually, she ended up making it into the Apex games. Some people speculate that Bangalore entered the Apex games to get enough money to rejoin her squad in IMC, and while that may have been the thought at first, her brother Jackson eventually explained how the IMC planned to use a multi-planetary destroyer weapon called the Fold to wipe out planets in the frontier, which is kind of considered a dick move. And of course, the IMC pilot that came after them was a heavy indicator to Bangalore that the IMC may not be the good guys. Her brother Jackson is also in the Apex games known as Newcastle. Newcastle even has a custom finisher animation whenever you finish a Bangalore player, in addition to Bangalore walking in and teasing Newcastle in the lobby screen to give a subtle nod that, they're siblings. And while this next entry doesn't have any direct siblings, on account of being a robot and all, he certainly has a big happy family. Because when it comes to the next reference, of course we have to mention Pathfinder. In Titanfall, our cheerful robot was originally just a normal AI drone from Hammond Robotics, but with some genius engineering and experimentation from Horizon's Sun and Dr. Reed, who you guys know as Ash, but more on her later, he went from being a simple Marvin to it's Timmy's favorite legend. After being upgraded and helping his creators complete their test for a new power source called Branthium, they were attacked by the Apex Predators, led into the lab by Dr. Reed, who had ended up betraying them. Although Pathfinder tried to stop them from escaping with the Branthium, he was shot by Dr. Reed. Entering the Apex games, his main goal is to find his creator and, more recently, his son.
And don't worry, kid. Whoever you are, Dad will find you.
But while we are on the subject of Pathfinder and Ash, let's talk about Ash as well. Ash was a major villain and stick in the ass in the Titanfall series, piloting her own mech and being one of the first bosses that you end up fighting in Titanfall 2. She was also a member of the Apex Predator squad in the IMC, and way long after that, she ended up being turned into a robot. And this next level doesn't come straight out of Titanfall, but close enough. Valkyrie's ties to Titanfall 2 run deep within the Apex Legends universe. Her father, known as Viper, was a prominent mercenary aligned with the Apex Predators. Viper was ultimately killed by Jack Cooper, who is the main protagonist in Titanfall 2, and who, for whatever reason, sounds like Mirage.
I think somebody's in love. Great. A new Titan weapon will be useful.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were someone else. This is awkward.
Now, Valkyrie don't actually know who ended up killing her father, but instead initially dished out to blame Blisk himself since he was, you know, the head of the squad. Years later, Valkyrie mustered up the courage to confront Blisk with the intention of avenging her father's death. However, Blisk managed to persuade her otherwise, steering her towards an alternative path, joining the ranks of the Apex Games. Driven by a desire to honor her father's memory, Valkyrie embarked on a quest to locate the remnants of his Titan. Collaborating with Rampart, she ingeniously transformed the Titan wreckage into a personalized jetpack and armor. As the ashes of her father were scattered, Valkyrie stepped into the realm of the Apex Games, driven by the ambition to craft a new legacy entirely on her own. But now evac towers exist, so I'm not sure how that's working out for her. Wraith also comes from Titanfall. She's actually from another dimension where the IMC won the war and was in charge of the entire frontier. She was a scientist who studied phase-shifting technology, and because she was so driven in her research, she had to end up performing multiple experiments on herself because she just couldn't find any volunteers that were crazy enough. This eventually led to her losing her mind. And despite losing her mind, Wraith's partner actually ended up continuing to perform experiments on her, but luckily a Wraith from another dimension, also known as a Voidwalker, came to her rescue and gave her the ability to phase shift across dimensions, which I think we do see all the time during the Apex Games. You know, when a knocked Wraith just disappears into the lobby. Wraith's phase-shifting ability itself also makes an appearance in Titanfall 2. Ash could be seen using this ability back then, and even some pilots and titans like the Ronin Titan also had access to this ability, which was unlocked by reaching level 30 in the multiplayer. But it's worth mentioning that it was a lot faster to activate than the long-ass finger-sniffing animation we have on Wraith today. In Titanfall, the Vial from Octane's stim ability is actually used by pilots to provide a speed boost. Oh yeah, also it's worth mentioning you can't actually see the stim getting injected into your body in Titanfall 2. Speaking of abilities, Pathfinder also has some abilities inherited from Titanfall 2. His grapple is basically the exact same as a grapple pilot, only without an overly enthusiastic 300-pound robot landing on top of you at 300 miles an hour, and it's unlocked at the start of the game. But hey, at least Path isn't as obnoxious as Mirage, who also yoinked his abilities from Titanfall 2. The Holo Pilot has the exact same Holo Decoy ability that Mirage does, but without the screaming bamboozle every 5 seconds. So if you ask me, it's kind of a big improvement. Anyways, while we are on the subject of mid characters, Rampart is yet another legend who adopted some abilities from TF2. The A-Wall Pilot has the ability to set up a shield wall, which allows you to shoot out of it while protecting you from incoming damage, very much like Rampart's. And in my opinion, Rampart's version is kind of a lot worse. Oh, and the Titanfall version looks more like Newcastle's tactical ability than it does Rampart's. But obviously you can't shoot through Newcastle's wall unless it's been destroyed, so I don't see how that would help. Horizon's ultimate is heavily inspired by the Gravity Star from Titanfall 2, but unlike in Apex Legends, in Titanfall, you cannot destroy the Gravity Star, and the Gravity Star did exactly what was in its name. It completely removed your gravity and dealt a lot of damage. And in a way, Horizon's ult is practically a modified version of the Gravity Star. Moving on, all the scan abilities in the game are basically born from the Pulse Blade, so now we know what to be mad at. And something else that I'm mad about, of course, is the removal of the Thunderdome. The old and one of the most missed POIs is called Thunderdome, and it was available on Kings Canyon right next to Skulltown, and it is actually a reference to where Blisk used to fight before he became a member of the IMC. According to the Titanfall lore, he would fight in the Thunderdome before going broke and then being approached to join the IMC. Another Kings Canyon point of interest is of course Crash Site, which is most likely named after the map Crash Site in Titanfall. Other than that, did you know that Mirage's and Pathfinder's Angel City skins are actually a reference to the Angel City map in Titanfall as well? At least that's what Redditors are saying, but if you actually look at the skins and at the map itself, the vibe doesn't really match. I feel like Respawn kinda just phoned this one in, I don't know. And this Bangalore select animation is a reference to this execution move from Titanfall 2. As you can see, the pilot goes in for a knife stab to the face, but Bangalore sees it, deflects the knife, goes in for a foot sweep, and sends her opponent to the gulag instead. as opposed to getting her head smashed with a knife. I did mention Skulltown previously, but I forgot to mention this. Skulltown itself is actually a heavily remodeled version of Boneyard, which was a map in Titanfall. Anyway, speaking of maps, before Arenas got cancelled, Respawn were planning on releasing a new map called Eden into Apex Legends. This map is based on the Titanfall map going by the same name, and maybe it will be repurposed in the future for mixtape, but who really knows. Also, fun fact, the space elevator from Eden ended up making its way into Skyhook. In Colony, another map from Titanfall 2, there exists this building that I'm sure you'll recognize even though you've probably never played Titanfall. And that's because it has the exact same layout as many buildings just like it that you can find in Kings Canyon, and it is just another instance of Respawn either referencing or straight up copying assets from the previous games. Speaking of Kings Canyon, on Kings Canyon, the POI called Runoff is a slightly modified version of the Runoff map in Titanfall 2. Also in Kings Canyon, Swamps was based on Swampland, also from Titanfall 2. Again, on Kings Canyon, you will find that Artillery shares a lot of similarities to Outpost 207 in Titanfall 2. Yeah, not all of them share the same name. Oh, and apparently Olympus started out as a concept for Titanfall 3, but as we all know, by now it's unlikely that Titanfall 3 would ever happen. In one of the buildings south of Geyser on World's Edge, you can find this book on the shelf next to the coffee mug. The book is a reference to Ty Latimosa from Titanfall 2, who was a mentor to the main character Jack Cooper. Latimosa is also the name of the former lead artist at Respawn Entertainment, as well as the weapons manufacturing company Latimosa's Armory, who were the ones responsible for upgrading the R201 from Titanfall 2 to the R301 in Apex Legends. A ton of other weapons also have their predecessors coming from the Titanfall series, those being the Wingman, RE45, Alternator, R99, Flatline, Hemlock, Mozambique, EVA 8, Mastiff, Spitfire, Devotion, G7 Scout, Longbow, Kraber, and of course, the Triple Take. The Nemesis is a special case where even though the gun wasn't directly in Titanfall 2, it does look quite similar to the splitter rifle used by Titans, and it actually references the splitter rifle with a rare reload animation. So I figured we could include this one as well. But moving past the topic of weapons, let's talk about something that's actually really important. What about the Nessies? Because who could forget the Nessies? They are all over Apex, and they actually appear in almost every Respawn game as an Easter egg going all the way back to Titanfall. We don't understand their obsession with the Nessie dolls, but we definitely don't hate it either. And there you have it. I'm sure I may have missed some references, so if you happen to know something cool that you want to share, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to check out this video on the screen where we went more in depth about all of the weapons that were moved from Titanfall into Apex Legends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace out.